Oh, we're back? Okay, super. Please proceed. Budget reserve account, both underwater.
And less than precise language on my part. You will see the balance of the budget reserve account is positive, so it's technically not underwater. It is below the traditional reserve amount, which is referred to as the statutory reserve amount.
The 5%.
5% of the forward forecast of general funds, which amounts to $155 million for the 25-26 biennium. And you'll see both the House and the Senate are below that level. Now, you can go home with it being below that level. That statute is only technically applies to the executive branch. It does not apply to the legislative branch. And I have seen one occasion, roughly 2017, where the legislature did adjourn with funds less than the statutory reserve amount. So you are not underwater, and I apologize for the less than precise language, but it is significantly lower than the 155. And you will see on the Legislative Stabilization Reserve account on line 51, this is kind of the collection of the majority of the differences between the House and the Senate. And you will see it's about $550 million of general operation funds. And you can really describe that as two items, $200 million for the large energy projects and $250 million that is being used to support the appropriation requests or positions of the House. So the $200 million appears on the House column, column R, on line 47, and the $250 million that is used to support the House position on appropriations appears on column R, line 33. So that is an explanation of the general operating accounts.
Can you give those to me one more time?
Sure. I was trying to describe the differences on line 51. You will see the Senate has $1.575 billion left in the LSRA, which is kind of a collection account for all of your actions. And the House position is 1.02, which is roughly $550 million. And then my second point was, how do I arrive at that? Well, there are two very large indicators. The first one appears in column R, row 47, where the House position is to include $200 million for energy matching funds. And you will see immediately to the right, the Senate position is 0. That's a big chunk of the $550 million difference. The next biggest chunk appears on row 33, column R, where the House has transferred $250 million from the LSRA to the budget reserve account to support the actions of that House. And I should say, the actions of that House are not solely appropriations. That is also used to fund their property tax reductions as well. Two more pages that are just worth mentioning. On page 4, the School Foundation Program. When I started back in November and December, I visited with you, kind of to give you an overview of where we were, and I indicated that the likelihood of breaching that $100 million statutory balance in the School Foundation Program was highly unlikely. Well, we are now in highly unlikely territory. Particularly on the House side, you will see that $100 million is the total in column R, line 59. And indeed, on line 22, column R, there is a $22 million backstop of the LSRA that is in fact being used. Again, they only added $18 million for mental health. But the big issue here is all of those tax bills have a direct impact on the 12 statewide mills and the 31 mills. And the House position also retained the Joint Appropriations Committee position, which segregated $200 million for large high schools, large school construction. The combination of those two things, there is now insufficient funds to do everything, if you will. I'm not suggesting that some of these bills may not find their way to the finish line in their current form. The Senate side, the big difference there is the $200 million. That's the primary difference, although there are other provisions as well. The last thing I will mention is on page 5, and this is, yes, 24, correct. That is the transfer to the large school capital construction holding account, and you'll see the House has a $200 million transfer. If that was cut, they would be back, closer to the Senate position. The last, because I want to end on a good note, the last item on the goldenrod is on page 5. So where does all of this money go? A lot of the money was not spent, it was moved. It was moved from page 2 and 3 to page 5. The big winner of this budget is the two reserve accounts. And you will see they're benefiting from funds that otherwise would have been in the LSRA, the SIPA account, the general fund, and the school foundation program reserve account. And you will find the totals of these two accounts, the PMTF reserve account of $814 million, for example, in the Senate position, and almost $750 million on the Common School Permanent Land Fund reserve account. So while the balances on page 2, 3, and 4 may be somewhat concerning, page 5, you will see some robust balances. These are in excess of 5x and well on their way to 7x in terms of your spending policy, 7 times the amount needed to support the spending policy for 1 year. Hopefully that gives you an overview of the finances, and with your permission, I will move to the 4-page newspaper or tabloid size document that has a summary of each of the House positions. There are 70 of them. I will try to proceed through them expeditiously. But at this point in the meeting, I would preface my education on this or discussion on this with 2 things. Under the rules, the chair shall designate a member of this committee to educate your colleagues. It's literally noted in the rules. So you may want to consider giving a page to the various folks so they might take special attention, if you will, of the proceedings over the next 30 minutes or so. Secondly, and a little unfortunately, I would not make, other than your assigned pages, I might not make extensive notes on this document. And the reason for that is these are just the House amendments. Once the Joint Conference Committee is appointed, we will have another document. In fact, it's 95% done. It will be 11 pages long and include both the House amendments and the Senate amendments ordered by agency. So when the JCC meets, it'll be a different document that you're working off of. This is just the House side that you're sharing with your Senate colleagues. Okay, Mr. Chairman, the first 13 amendments are the identical amendments. House second reading amendment number 5 and Senate third reading amendment number 1 both provided $20,000 for a feasibility study for the Lifesaver program that relates to dementia training for law enforcement. That is off the table. House third reading amendment number 74 and Senate third reading amendment number 2, also identical. This designated $850,000 of previously appropriated, meaning in the JAC mark, FNRPA funds for funding 2 county positions.
Don, so in terms of the order on this spreadsheet, it varies a bit from the order on this standing committee report. So for instance, this report goes House Amendment 5, but then goes to House Amendment 74, and then back to, which is at the bottom of the list, and then back to House Amendment 8. Why do they not follow the same order as is in this report?
Because the mirror is these are all in numerical order, but on the Senate side. So you will see in the third column, the mirror to the Senate is Senate Third Reading Amendment 1, 2.
Okay, thank you.
The document that you will be submitting to the floor is in amendment order.
Okay, thank you.
I believe we're on the third item, which is House Second Reading Amendment number 8 and Senate Second Reading Amendment number 10. And this provides for Ag in the Classroom, which has been around for about 6 years, to be part of the standard budget rather than an exception budget. House Second Reading Amendment number 18 and Senate Third Reading Amendment number 7. This provides $250,000 for trauma designations and education within the Public Health Division of the Department of Health. House Second Reading Amendment 57 and Senate Second Reading Amendment number 30. Both sides reduced the Business Council's budget by $700,000 and eliminated the footnote related to the expenditure of those funds for the entrance fee travel advertising for the 2025 and 2026 Rose Parade. House Second Reading Amendment number 26 and Senate Second Reading Amendment number 38 both provided $2.5 million for matching funds in the College of Agriculture for range management, agronomy, soil science. House Second Reading Amendment number 32 and Senate Second Reading Amendment number 45, also identical. This was the Nethercott Amendment on the Senate side, and this provided authorization for the OAH, or Office of Administrative Hearings, to provide services in resolution disputes or dispute resolution for the community colleges. House Third Reading Amendment number 29, Senate Second Reading Amendment number 46, added to an existing footnote providing for study of the gaps and security, integrity, and fairness of gaming in the state of Wyoming. House Second Reading Amendment number 38 and Third Reading Amendment number 34 both provided approximately $1.9 million for leasing of charter schools in Laramie and Natrona counties. House Second Reading Amendment number 39 and Senate Second Reading Amendment number 52. This provided for a designation of the clean water and drinking water funds. As written in the Joint Appropriations Committee, all $24.5 million went to the Clean Water Fund, and this amendment distributed those. I will pause here on this one just to refresh your memory. The Senate then came back in and eliminated the potential to use these funds altogether. So while both sides did the cleanup, the Senate ultimately eliminated those funds for water grants, excuse me. House Second Reading Amendment number 42, the Nicholas Amendment, and Senate Second Reading Amendment number 56 from Senator Landon both provided $75,000, with half of that effective immediately for the Wyoming Spanish-American War Monument. House Second Reading Amendment number 47 and Senate Second Reading Amendment number 57 provided for authorization for the governor to reimburse the costs of suppressing fires, and they did so in a tiered manner such that the fire protection revolving account would be used first, then the governor's access to his public welfare emergency appropriation would be second, and third and finally, if necessary, borrowing authority from the LSRA. And finally, the last identical amendment is House Third Reading Amendment number 73 and Senate Third Reading Amendment number 52. This provided for $50,000 from a prior appropriation, not new money, and allowed the Shooting Complex Oversight Task Force to expend those funds for a consultant. Now I'm moving to the next section of 3 sections of this report, and these are related amendments. I did not say they were identical. I did not say they are related. And it includes some subjectivity on the part of staff, so you could rightly conclude that these are not related, but they certainly have the similar subject matter. So the first one is House Third Reading Amendment number 89, it is related to your own technical corrections amendment, because that's all it does. And for your background, the first and third item, that is page 8, line 17, and page 53, line 1, are in both versions. The balance of those amendments are going to differ because these are corrections to House-adopted amendments, and you had some corrections to Senate-adopted amendments, and of course, those are going to be the divergences. The next package here are the next two boxes on the bottom. House Second Reading Amendment number 49, that was identical to your Senate position, providing for $2 million appropriation to assist in the purchase or procurement of supplies and expenses incurred for the state of Texas for securing the southern border. The House adopted that amendment initially, and then they came back and deleted that and elected to deposit $2 million into a different program. Their program is a reimbursement of local law enforcement entities that have volunteer individuals going down to support the efforts to secure the border. So one is a reimbursement of Wyoming law enforcement entities for their volunteer purposes. And of course, the Senate position is for the procurement of supplies.
So Don, I see the strikeout on House 2049. I'm not seeing where it came back in as assistance to local law enforcement.
Excellent, Mr. Chairman. It's the next two. So you'll see House Second Reading Amendment number 3. It started out at $1 million, and then they bumped it up to $2 million in third reading. That concludes the first page. Pause for any questions. The top of page 2, House Third Reading Amendment number 4 is related. You landed in completely different places, but related in terms of subject matter. The Senate's position, you'll recall, is you removed the footnote on the Secretary of State prohibiting the participation in out-of-state litigation. And the House expanded that footnote to apply to 4 of the top 5 elected officials, everyone except for the governor. So you both had action in this, certainly landed in different places. The next item is House Second Reading Amendment number 7, the O'Hearn Amendment. I've already touched base on this. You both ended up with the exact same amount of money for the military land exchange, $15.1 million. You'll see the House position is to deposit it into the, quote, appropriate account by law, and the Senate position, you named the account. So there's essentially no difference there, very little difference. It was not mere. House Second Reading Amendment number 15, the Crago Amendment. This is similar to 2 of your amendments on the Senate side. Both bodies ended up depositing an additional $5 million, similar to the governor's letter, for invasive grasses and plants. You also both changed the program to be a grant program. The difference is the House went one step further and struck the sentence requiring a 3-to-1 match. So on the Senate side, your funds still require a 3-to-1 match. The House side does not. House Second Reading Amendment number 53, and in my preparation, I wish the next one was House Third Reading Amendment number 10, because those two go together. So you might want to put an arrow between House Second Reading Amendment number 53, the Penn Amendment, and House Third Reading Amendment number 10, the Crago Amendment. You landed, you had a very similar amendment to the Penn Amendment 53, in that you provided on the Department of Health that no funds shall be appropriated, or no funds appropriated under the section shall be expended for gender transition, gender reassignment, or purposes of procuring or performing an abortion. Your language has that same language. The House then on third reading came back and provided 3 exceptions to that language. In the case of abortions as a result of incest, sexual assault, and in the life of the mother. The Senate does not have those exceptions. House Third Reading Amendment number 12, the Byron Amendment, very or somewhat similar to the Scott Amendment on the Senate side, Second Reading Amendment number 22. On the Senate side, you took the preschool children with developmental disabilities program and shifted that to the general fund from the school foundation program. The House left it in the school foundation program and increased the amount by $4 million. So different funding source, slightly higher, well, $4 million higher appropriation on the House side. That is House third reading amendment number 12.
But Don, just showing 4 million on our sheet, it really is 8 million?
I think the total is actually 16. So there was 12 million already in the budget, and they increased it by 4. This is just the increase, correct?
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, Don is, that was, let's make sure I had this right. So JAC moved it, the GUSREC was 16 one time. We moved it to 12 ongoing. And now the Byron third reading amendment number 12 raises it back to the GUSREC, but leaves it ongoing. Is that correct?
That is correct, and one more contextual item, and that is the Joint Education Committee also had a bill that I believe was higher than both of these.
Yes, that was 13. Yeah, okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
If there are no further questions, I think we're on House second reading amendment number 22. This was for $75,000 for acquiring mammoth jackstock donkeys. You'll recall on the Senate side, you adopted the same amendment, but you came back on third reading and defeated that amendment. So the House kept it in. They have the $75,000. The Senate does not. Next, House third reading amendment number 18. This provides $250,000 for the family practice residency for veterans' mental health, Medicaid or medication management, and suicide prevention screening, identical to the Senate's position. However, the House also allows those funds to be used for prenatal care for pregnant mothers. The Senate does not. So those 4 words are the differences between the bodies. Whether the funds can be used for prenatal care, the House says yes, the Senate says no. Next, House second reading amendment number 41. This is related somewhat. The benchmark and performance compensation review. This is the investment teams at the Wyoming Retirement System and the State Treasurer's Office. The House kept that in and had an expanded role for the governor's office. The Senate deleted this provision entirely. Next, House third reading amendment number 76, the Nicholas Amendment. And House third reading amendment number 86, also the Nicholas Amendment. And I might pause here. You will see a couple of things are unique to the House. Only the chairman of the committee can sponsor any amendment to the budget on third reading after 5 p.m. So just because you see Representative Nicholas's name there does not necessarily indicate these were his amendments or his ideas. But his colleagues could prevail upon him that they missed the deadline and he could offer them on their behalf. Just a technical point there. In any event, these 2 amendments relate to a similar amendment on the Senate side, which provided for a condition on the sale of the Kelly parcel. The third reading amendment number 86 is probably most closely related on the House side. It includes a provision that requires continued availability for public hunting in perpetuity and livestock grazing. House third reading amendment number 76, just one line earlier than this, is different than the Senate position. This makes the sale of the Kelly parcel contingent upon the results of the Rock Springs Resource Management Plan, or RMP. And finally, Mr. Chairman, members, the last related amendment is House third reading amendment number 55. Both chambers adopted a appropriation of the ARP-D, or American Rescue Plan Act, direct funding to the governor. There were 2 differences between the 2 positions. The first difference in the House side, the House made this provision to take precedent over any other bill. At the time, there was a bill alive that made a different approach to these ARP-D funds. And then secondly, they did provide guidance in the form of three priorities that the governor could consider. It is not a requirement on the governor. It just said, please consider 4 priorities, including mental health, water projects, and the like. Now,
Please, Senator Anderson.
Chairman, so that increased it by 626, so what is the total of that ARPA then?
Mr. Chairman, you only had $626,000 that was unappropriated. The total amount, I believe, is roughly $1,052,000,000.
But 626 is all we had that wasn't appropriated?
626,000 was the total amount that was not appropriated. However, what you're probably thinking of is you appropriated money that couldn't be spent for their original purposes, and that amount was about 52 million.
Yeah.
And that was being reappropriated in both sides.
And that's not in here.
It's not in here because we've already counted that appropriation once, so we're now just changing the purposes for it, but through the reappropriation, but we're not adding a new money appropriation.
Okay.
Now I'm on the unrelated amendments. You might have, some of these might be somewhat familiar to you because they might have been offered and withdrawn in your chamber. They might have been offered and defeated in your chamber, but quite commonly over the next several amendments, these will be some new ideas, and these are probably the most difficult to grasp because you haven't had a lot of background on them. House third reading amendment number 1 provides $5.5 million, $4 million of which is for equipment needs related to hazmat or hazardous materials, and $1.5 million for ERT, or the Emergency Response Team's responses to weapons of mass destruction. House third reading amendment number 5, this provides authorization for the state treasurer to invest $15 million in mortgages for first-time home buyers at a reduced rate, 3.5% mortgage rate. The very next amendment, you will see the Nicholas Amendment modified the Harshman Amendment, House third reading amendment number 75, and designated the LSRA for the purposes of those investments rather than the PMTF RA. So it's a choice of accounts there, but they both accomplish the same objective, which was to allow $15 million per year, total of $30 million over the course of a biennium for that investment. House third reading amendment numbers. They both passed, and the Nicholas Amendment, if you will, trumps the House Amendment because it amends the Harshman Amendment. House third reading amendment number 6 provides $100,000 for the Attorney General to investigate third-party contractors, to investigate mailers that fail to comply with the statutory requirements of campaign advertising. House third reading amendment number 50 also provides $285,000 to the Attorney General's office. This is for purposes of cold case investigations. House third reading amendment number 81, the Conrad Amendment, no additional funds, but it provides a fair number, it's a short description here, but it's a fair number of conditions upon the manner in which the department can expend monies on the demolition of the Wyoming State Hospital. In particular, it identifies underground tunnels and I believe 4 facilities that cannot be demolished for a period of time. I think the notion was the community wanted to investigate other uses for those facilities. House second reading amendment number 78, the Western Amendment, it provided $1 million to the Wyoming Home Services. I think being on JAC, you're all well familiar with the Wyoming Home Services program. House second reading amendment number 2020, Division 1, provided $314,000 for grants to Wyoming senior centers. So I believe the Joint Appropriations Committee added $200,000. The House added $314,000. You might be scratching your head, how did they come up with $314,375? Well, you'll see this amendment was divided, and they had intended to remove a regional director from the business council to pay for this. Half the amendment passed, the other half did not. Last amendment on page 2 is House Second Reading Amendment number 21. The Provenza Amendment provides a net of $1 million for the foster care providers' rate reimbursement. You'll recall that you had several amendments in JAC that increased the rate for the RTFs. You did not increase it for foster services or for group homes.
And this is permanent?
This is permanent.
Yes,
May I ask a question?
Certainly.
So on those last three, are those ongoing or one time? So starting with 78.
Mr. Chairman, these would all continue at the level biennially. They don't double, but they continue. Top of page 3, and we're in a very similar territory. We're still in the
page 3 or 4?
Page 3.
Okay.
Continuing on in the Department of Family Services, House Second Reading Amendment number 54, Division 1. Very similar to the last amendment, this provided $2.4 million for rate increases for the group homes, similar to the foster care. House Third Reading Amendment number 13 provided a total of $6 million, and this was for the EBT, or the Electronic Benefit Transfer Program, providing summer lunches or child nutrition services through the Department of Family Services. House Second Reading Amendment number 24, the Walters Amendment, added $500,000 for a grant program should any community in the state of Wyoming be chosen for the national championship air races. They would benefit from that $500,000. House
Mr.
Third.
Chairman,
Please.
Mr. Chairman, but that comes out of the tourism reserve account. It's not new money.
That's correct. The reserve and projects account. House Third Reading Amendment number 15.
Before you go any further, Don, tell me again, in the JAC budget, we increased, we did not increase these group homes or the RTFs. What did we increase in the JAC budget?
You did increase the RTFs. You did not increase the group homes or the foster care.
Okay. Thank you. Please proceed.
House Third Reading Amendment number 15 also relates to the Wyoming Tourism Board, also appropriates funds from the project reserve and projects account. And this is for a feasibility study for the establishment of a Veterans Museum in Casper. House Second Reading Amendment number 25. There's no funds associated with this, but directs the University of Wyoming to review opportunities for acquiring property in a neighboring state for regional medical training, and requires a report to 3 committees. House Second Reading Amendment number 6. House Second Reading Amendment number 63 is closely related to House Third Reading Amendment number 82, so these two go together. You'll probably be familiar with the first one. This prohibit, or actually disincentivized, the family practice centers at the University of Wyoming for providing any gender transition or reassignment procedures. Why I say disincentivize, it means if they did provide it, they would not get $100,000, but it wasn't a flat-out prohibition. And then you'll see the very next amendment eliminated that amendment. So the net position is no change from the JAC position. House Third Reading Amendment number 56. This provided or direction to the University of Wyoming to review opportunities to expand medical education, either through expansion of WWAMI, expansion of WICHE, or new relationships with Western regional public universities. The next portion of the amendment appears on the next line because it applies to a different agency, and they added $1.3 million for additional student contracts on top of the $700,000 that the Joint Appropriations provided, for a total of $2 million for student contracts in the WICHE program. House Second Reading Amendment Number 27, the Brown Amendment, provided or directed the Business Council to pursue a review of a $250,000 effective immediate feasibility study. But they took it out of existing funds, not a new appropriation. And this feasibility study is intended to look at the expansion of generic drug manufacturing in the state of Wyoming. Next one we have is House Second Reading Amendment Number 28, the Harshman Amendment. This specified that $8 million of funding under the Business Ready Communities program shall be used for workforce housing. So it's no new funds, but carves out existing appropriation solely for the purposes of workforce housing. House Third Reading Amendment Number 21, the
Hey,
stiff.
Don, before you go on, Mr. Chairman,
Yes, please.
did that say where that housing might be? Was that for Jackson or was that for, oh, it didn't say.
It did not say, so the Business Council has discretion based upon the applicants.
Oh,
And Don, remind me, we ended up with a note on housing, or did we delete the housing thing?
Mr. Chairman, Elizabeth Martineau with LSO, that amendment did not pass on the Senate side.
Okay, but there's still, the original 5 million is still in there.
Mr. Chairman, yes, the original from Section 334 from 2023 is still in the bill.
Okay, thank you.
The next item, I believe, is House Third Reading Amendment Number 21. This is a deletion of a portion of the amendment. And speaking directly, you'll recall JAC added this amendment. In fact, it was the same sponsor, specifying that those federal funds under the State Small Business Credit Initiative, you'll recall this is the private equity component of the federal government funding that was not flowing through the state. And Representative Stith, in your conversations and markup, asked that this fund flow through the state's finances. And then this amendment removes his own request to have it flow through the state.
Oh, okay, so he cleaned it up.
House Third Reading Amendment Number 26, the Harshman Amendment, is just a direction to the Department of Education to specify a inclusion of a suicide prevention questionnaire in a statewide survey of districts. House Third Reading Amendment Number 57. This designated a pre-K study and for the Department of Education to work with the Joint Education Interim Committee on a study of early childhood education. House Third Reading Amendment Number 27. This adds on to an existing amendment to specify that expenditures by the Department of Education pursuant to the footnote, and this footnote relates to agriculture training, more specifically FFA, although FFA is not noted in the footnote, would become part of the standard budget rather than an exception budget. House Second Reading Amendment Number 12, 13, and Third Reading Amendment Number 28, all three of those at the bottom of the page, relate to the Gaming Commission. First, they added $350,000 and a temporary position for 1 year for a new executive secretary and executive director of the agency. Secondly, they provided they being the House, provided $343,000.
Representative Stitt here. Representative Walters.
House Second Reading Amendment Number 13 provided $343,000 for race day staffing, up to 5 AWECs for race day events. That's live horse racing. And finally, House Third Reading Amendment Number 28 makes that appropriation effective immediate. Finally, the last page, primarily Section 300s. House Third Reading Amendment Number 30 is a restoration of many of the capital construction activities and that were in the JAC bill, House Bill 135. The major one that was ultimately not included is the appropriations for the Law Enforcement Academy. They were not restored on the House side. House 3030 provides the base amount, and then House 3031, that's the Western Amendment, added the Department of Family Services Stolt Hall in Sheridan.
Okay, hang on a second. Okay, so 3030 Nicholas, that's the base amount. Okay, and then where's the Western?
3031.
3031.
No, down below.
Down.
Oh,
Yeah,
down
right
here.
down there.
Okay, super, gotcha. Thank you.
And keep that train of thought because the next two build upon this. 3032, it's fortunate they're all in numerical order as well, adds the 3 Gillette provisions into the capital construction, the Enzi facility, and then approximately 9 or 10 existing facilities that would transfer from either Northern Wyoming Community College District or the county, Campbell County. And
Don, originally, these were just real perfunctory things. It was just a transfer. But in the propes, I think originally, in the bill, Senator Walters or Representative Walters added, and by the way, the state will take care of all the major maintenance. Is that included in these
It is.
footnotes as well? Okay.
Finally, House third reading amendment number 33 is the last component of this capital construction suite. The Crago amendment adds $69 million of general funds for the Veterans Home in Buffalo. That was not included in House Bill 135, so that is an addition beyond. Next, House third reading amendment number 88. This provides a reduction in the transfer from the general fund to the SIPA account. The Senate position took all of this money, approximately $174 million. The House spent a fair bit of SIPA money, so it could only take about 14 million. Then the next piece of this is they have 2 budget balance transfers. The first one on budget balance transfer 2 allows the carryover of 23-24 revenue into the next biennium. So they're basically not sweeping those funds to the LSRA. They allow it to be used in the next biennium. The House or the Senate does not have such a provision. And then finally, budget balancers and transfers number 3, that provides the $250 million backstop from the LSRA for the general fund and the budget reserve account. That's essentially how their budget and tax bills are being paid for.
That's the 330, was it?
330, last line before,
Okay.
yep, 2033.
Okay.
House 2033, the Western Amendment, provides for a deposit of $40 million into the 988 trust fund. House third reading amendment number 36 provides for the appropriation of Department of Health carryovers. You had already segregated these funds in an account, but you did not subsequently appropriate them for purposes of the state hospital demolition. The House side does appropriate them for the demolition of the state hospital. House third reading amendment number 45. This eliminates language regarding the business and community facilities language from the 2023 grant program. And currently, a facility had to be previously used as a school and previously received funds from a BRC grant. And that previous requirement is being struck. So it opens up the potential grant opportunities for a wider number of submissions. House second reading amendment number 75 includes the governor's
Before we go
office.
on,
Senator
Mr.
Anderson.
Chairman, but it says, community center before the effective section, a former school facility. Does that really open it up to other facilities that, like a city hall could be a community center?
Mr. Chairman, Senator, I believe so because the verb ahead of that is we're striking all of that. So all of that former school facility is in the current law, and he's striking all of that, and that's why it opens it up to non-school facilities.
This is Old and Stony.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
House second reading amendment number 75, the Nicholas amendment. This includes the governor's office in the state's review of the budget management system, or IBARS system. House 3069, the Provenza amendment, adds an additional $95,000 to the election administration and security, specifically for voter education regarding new voter registration laws. So I believe the JAC added 95, and this amendment doubles that amount. Next, House second reading amendment number 46, the Northrop amendment, provides for a 5% increase for all Hathaway Scholarship Awards for the period of the budget. So that's the opportunity, the honors, the needs-based award, all of those would increase by 5% for the period of the budget. House third reading amendment number 47, the Western amendment. This increases for the period of the budget, the monthly death benefit for law enforcement duty-related deaths to 90% of the officer's salary. House third reading amendment number 50, the Summers amendment. We've visited about this before. This was $18.5 million out of the school foundation program for a grant to school districts for mental health needs of students. And finally, Mr. Chairman, House third reading amendment number 85, the Nicholas amendment, allows the investment earnings off of the OREC account, or the Outdoor Recreation Tourism Trust Fund account, to be expended. Right now, the statute and the trust fund is set up, money is invested, but the investment earnings cannot be spent without further legislative authorization. This amendment provides that authorization. If there are any questions, we'd be happy to respond.
Mr. Chairman,
Please.
what is it, Western one, law enforcement duty-related death benefit, that's just for law enforcement, not for fire or anybody else, huh?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Anderson, that is correct. And keep in mind that the law enforcement program is different than, say, correctional officers or highway patrol officers. Excuse me, the correctional officers are included. So if there were an unfortunate death in the line of duty, anytime between this act and June 30th of 2026, they would be eligible for that 90% benefit. Right now, I believe, and Polly can help me out here, I think it's 68%.
Mr. Chairman, it's 62.5% right now.
Thank you.
Is it possible, Don, to just, not on this sheet, but on the combined, to get an idea of which of these open up the green books?
I don't think that will be too hard.
Thank you. Committee questions?
That's all I have is questions.
That's all. So typically, Don, when we go to the floor, we show them this and suggest that they can follow along on this sheet roughly, but we're working from this with the floor.
That's a great question. And before you depart from this meeting, I've seen it done in a variety of ways. What documents do you wish to provide your colleagues? And you don't have to be the same on each side. So for example, this is all of the text of every amendment, fairly voluminous. We could provide that to the floor. We could provide the summary sheet. The only thing that is required is that one-page standing committee report. Everything else is additional.
And Don, we don't vote on this, we just present it.
That's correct. It is required that you submit that report.
Mr. Chairman,
Please.
it appears that a number of senators outside of the committee have the summary report already. And so it would be my request that all 31 senators receive the summary report as well as the written amendments, so it's equitable access to all information.
So this summary sheet, as well as the actual amendments, the packet of amendments, House amendments with the language of the amendments?
Correct.
Okay, I think that's a good point. Let's do that. And I think they should all get the high-level summary as well.
Did you already go over the Senate?
Then we'll just pick somebody at random to do the goldenrod. Okay, is there, committee, is there any preference? I don't know that we're gonna do this afternoon, probably first thing in the morning, but I'll get together with the majority floor leader and the president, see what they want to do. But is there any preference amongst these? Who wants to do what? Who would like to do this high-level summary of differences? Anyone?
This one here?
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, it seems pretty explanatory to me, just on its face. I'm
Oh,
not
yeah.
sure we need a
I could do that.
great level of
Probably be
explanation.
pretty easy.
Or you could do the goldenrod.
Yeah, goldenrod is worse. This one here would be,
I'm hearing it's self-explanatory, and I'm hearing that you'd walk them through it. Which is it? What's the pleasure of the group?
well, I would sure walk them through it, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I'm gonna put your name down on that one. And let's start with that one, Jim. And then, how do we want to do this standing committee summary sheet? We want to break that up? Okay, Tim is page 1. Any volunteers for page 2? You don't want to do page 2? Jim?
I don't know if I'm good enough on these pages. Maybe you should do it, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I'll take page 2. Anybody want to take 3? So Salazar, you take 3 and I'll take 4. I'll bring up the rear. Okay,
And you're just talking about doing the House ones, not the Senate ones.
yeah, just the House ones. And I'll do a bit of goldenrod, mercifully brief. Unless somebody else wants to jump in and do the goldenrod. No? Okay, yeah. I'll do a brief goldenrod.
Do goldenrod.
It puts people to sleep right after lunch,
Yeah.
or right after breakfast, okay? Anything else for staff?
We'll get your signatures on a couple of fresh copies and start making those copies for the floor, and we'll have them ready. Also, just like during the discussion of the budget, Polly and I will be available just off the floor, similar to Elizabeth's prior
Okay.
service last week.
Well, and I'll be getting it, when we go into committee of the whole, I'll probably catch the both of you to just make sure that I'm following on all of this information, these sheets here, because I want to make sure what we present is accurate. All
Hey,
right.
you're gonna be chairing the committee of the whole, you can't leave.
Well, I'll be on the couch in back if you need me. Senator Salazar.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So Don, these pages, will they be updated, or will there be an update between now and tomorrow morning? Or will they not, will there be no changes?
Senator Salazar, there will be no changes.
Okay.
Once the joint conference committee, or first joint conference committee, is appointed, we will make a new, and we, like I said, we're a few % way from doing that. I would be happy to share that document with the committee. I would be hesitant to share that widely because not because the information isn't available, but because it will cause a fair bit of confusion as to which sheet you're working from. The purposes of your presentation to the body is just to discuss the House amendments.
Gotcha. Anything else for staff? All right, we're gonna lay over public retirement HB 083. I think, Linda, when's our next meeting? Tomorrow morning at 8 AM in which room? In this room, 113. I'll announce it again on the floor. And we'll also have a noon meeting if we need to, because we're starting to get some of these bills stacked up. So with that, I'm gonna go ahead and adjourn the meeting and